Diarrhea and dysentery affect a lot of children in our communities, but most times they are mistaken for each other, and at times it's late discovery of the same that causes the children to die. According to the World Health Organization, many children are dying out there in our communities because of diarrhea and dysentery, and that's because we lack enough information to understand what's happening. And for some parents, it's the child will be fine, so let's just let them be. But is that the case? That's what we are here to find out today on NTV Medical Matters. We are supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and my name is Viola Xasia. It's such a pleasure to have you. We have our expert in studio. I'll give him just a minute to introduce himself and we dive in.
Thank you so much, Viola. I'm Dr. Crispino Sawundo from UMC Victoria Hospital. We're here to detail a bit about diarrhea and dysentery to the community to understand how these two diseases differ and how they affect the population at large. Thank you. So
first of all, let's just understand the two. We shall begin with diarrhea. What is it in a nutshell? After that, talk about dysentery, because I need to, create a clear line in between the two, because a lot of people think they're similar, but I understand they're different. So diarrhea first.
So diarrhea is very different from dysentery, right from the presentation, how it appears in the person it's presenting in. And the key difference is that, one, a person who has diarrhea is going to have watery stools. So one thing we are very keen with to take care of is that the person will have at least 3 loose stools. So by loose, I mean the stool is not normally formed. It's more watery than it's supposed to be. It can get as worse as almost close to water. Yeah. When you have 3 loose stools in a period of a day or 24 hours, is that what you mean by a day? We call that diarrhea. To detail a little bit about diarrhea is that diarrhea can be caused by a lot of things. It could be an infection, it could be food, it could be water. Now, on the other hand, about dysentery, a diarrhea can actually turn into a dysentery, or a person can just start off with a dysentery. What is very key is that every person that has dysentery, the stools are more mucoid, they have mucus in them, and sometimes they have blood in them. What is very clear is that every time we see blood in stool, we call that dysentery. Every time you see the stools just watery, we call that diarrhea. Thank you.
So how can parents tell when diarrhea is progressing to dysentery? You also mentioned it can happen alone, but what about if it's coming from diarrhea to dysentery? How can a parent, monitor and tell that it's happening?
What's very clear is the blood. So usually, once a parent sees a little one, let me say they are 4 years, and then they have blood in their stool, please suspect dysentery. But also, every time you see blood in stool as a parent, you should be a bit scared, because sometimes we might think it's diarrhea, it's dysentery, it's other issues of the digestive system. So anything to do with blood, please suspect dysentery and most likely come to hospital almost immediately.
So for a parent that is wondering in this case, how dangerous is dysentery as compared to diarrhea, but also what makes it that way?
Okay, so just as I said at the very start, is that diarrhea can be caused by issues that are infectious, either bacteria, a parasite, or worms. You can get diarrhea from all those things. But also you can get diarrhea from food, taking in water that is not clean, water is contaminated by fecal matter. So in that case, when a child develops dysentery, on the other hand, it is always and always infectious. So we suspect that we actually very sure that most of the causes of dysentery are infectious. By infectious, I mean bacterial causes. So with bacteria, the child or the person presenting with the diarrhea or the dysentery will have fevers. So fevers in children will affect them more than just what we see as a fever. The body is hot. It can affect the brain when a child starts to have abnormal body movements, which we call in hospital convulsions. So in that case, we emphasize that we treat dysentery with the seriousness it deserves when it comes. Thank you.
So what are the main causes of these two illnesses? If you take it away from what you mentioned before for the area, what is the rest? What happens? Child drank dirty water, or they were playing somewhere. What are some of the other causes that we may overlook?
Okay, so the things that we overlook, I want to stress out this point. At home, most of the mothers are very careful. But then sometimes, because of the world we live in, mothers run out and work. So bring in a maid. So in the cases where you bring in a maid, sometimes the maids are not very careful with the children. For example, a maid is going to change a diaper or a pamper, and then before they wash their hands, they transfer they touch the child. So in that case, you've simply transferred fecal matter from the diaper to the child. When fecal matter is out, the bacteria in the fecal matter, which is naturally there, multiply faster than they can multiply while inside the digestive system. So in that case, the child can easily develop diarrhea from such instances. The other thing that we ignore is that we have how we keep the food. So the World Health Organization emphasizes in one of the 5 steps of controlling diarrhea or dysentery is that it's very important to keep cooked food away from uncooked food. Because uncooked food, yes, might look clean and healthy. The Irish potatoes you bought from a supermarket might look clean, but they are not cooked, they are not boiled, they have not been subjected to temperatures that can kill bacteria. So in that case, contact between those 2 food items can cause diarrhea.
What are some of the most common symptoms of diarrhea for a mother watching right now and is imagining what a case would look like? What are the first symptoms? Okay,
so diarrhea can in our medical terms we say very interesting. We stage it. We have what we call mild diarrhea. We have what we call acute diarrhea. We have what we call severe diarrhea. So one of the things that we start by seeing is that a child will have watery stools, just as we said at first. And the age we are looking at mostly is children below 5 years. If a child is around 2 years and above, they might be able to complain of abdominal pain.
Yeah.
So sometimes they complain of abdominal pain, you see them diureting, please suspect diarrhea. The other thing is that a child might complain of feeling nauseated, and sometimes they might progress to almost vomiting or vomit. So every time a child vomits and then they are complaining of nausea, they are passing watery stools, suspect diarrhea. Now, that is the initial presentation of the disease, which is the most important thing, the most important aspect as why we want to lay this out very clearly, is that a child is going to start out passing these watery stools. But then, you're not just losing stool, you're losing water. So you're losing more water than you should have lost. Now, your digestive system doesn't only component an issue of water. We have things we call electrolytes, things like salt, the normal salt that you take. So every time you pass out a lot of water, so you pass out a lot of salt. So the child will have a reduction in their body system of water and also the salts. So the child ends up in a state of dehydration. But also we get what we call medically an electrolyte imbalance. So an electrolyte imbalance is that a child is going to not have sodium, and this sodium is important for the function of the brain. So the child will start out by becoming very weak. In most of the cases when mothers bring children to hospital, it's because they are not able to speak or the child has actually blacked out. But by the time the child blacks out, it means they have been diureting over and over again. And when you ask the maid or the mother, they'll tell the child has diureted like 20 times, which is a lot.
Yeah. So
in that case, it's important to note that complications can progress as long as you let the presentations continue. So when you see the child diureting, passing watery stools, please, you don't let it reach the extremes. Bring the child to hospital.
So doctor, what specific symptoms are there for dysentery that make it, say, a bit different from diarrhea?
Okay, again, we can't emphasize enough the blood. Every time you have stool and you see blood in stool, for a child 12 years below, most likely it's dysentery. Yeah.
What should parents worry about fever, just normal fever? Because I also want to understand that you can't create a false alarm just because a child had, watery stool. At what stage do parents have to run to the hospital to take the child?
So, one, mothers are very vigilant. You have seen now the child has been since morning.
Yeah.
It's now 10 and the child has passed these stools. They are loose. They're about, let me say 3 episodes. Every child or every person will respond to a disease differently. A child will have 3 loose stools and still play out and be strong. Another will have 2 loose stools and be very weak.
Yeah.
So in that case, it's important that the mother actually agrees or okays what the child is looking like at that particular time. It's important to be true to yourself. The child has passed stool twice, that is loose, but the child is looking weak. Then before you know it, fevers are setting in. So most likely that child is already too bad. Sometimes you might not have noticed the other episodes of the loose stools because of the diapers and what. Yeah. So the only time you're seeing is when the child is actually doing not so well. So it's important to pay attention to the fevers, to pay attention to the symptoms or how the child is looking at that particular time. You
mentioned something about dehydration, yes, which is actually, I guess, a bit of a critical stage. But dehydration, how can a parent tell that this child is becoming dehydrated? Are there signs and symptoms that could show that?
So dehydration is very obvious, unless if you don't want to pay attention to it.
I wouldn't say that to the parents. I'm sure they're trying their best, but how can you be able to
signs of dehydration. One, there's something we call lethargy. A child was playing, and then suddenly they are too irritable for life. Okay. They don't want to be touched. Everyone who touches them, maybe they only prefer to be touched by the mother, carried by the mother or the dad. They don't want the maid. Then when the dad carries them, they also don't want. But then the mom is carrying them, they're also turning around within their hands. So once you notice irritability in a child who has been initially jolly and playing, please, that's the initial suspicion of dehydration. The other thing that might be difficult for mothers to tell but actually happen is that children become pale.
I was imagining something like sunken eyes or some,
Yeah, by the time a child gets really sunken, we are talking about very, very severe dehydration. And usually mothers, because you keep looking at the child all the time, it might be difficult for you to actually tell that the child has sunken eyes. Yeah. Though it's a top symptom and classification of dehydration, but we would encourage mothers to identify when the child's state actually changes. So when you come to hospital, we'll then look into the other details. We'll look at the skin of the child, we'll look at the eyes and tell that, okay, this child has this level of dehydration.
What are some of the dangers of untreated diarrhea and dysentery? And I understand some parents feel, my child will be fine, it's just diarrhea, it happens a lot in infants. So for a person watching and thinking that should pass, what are the dangers of leaving it alone to pass? Okay,
sometimes it passes.
It does?
It does
pass.
I
had no idea.
Sometimes it does pass, but not all the times. Actually, according to the data by the World Health Organization about children under age of 5, the commonest cause of death in these children is diarrhea.
Oh, no,
but it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Yes, diarrhea versus dysentery. Dysentery is not very common. Just as I said, dysentery is from an infectious cause, bacteria or something. Sometimes diarrhea might be infectious or not. The issue with diarrhea is that you will get diarrhea from anything. You take dirty water, you get it. Contaminated food, you get it. You eat different types of foods, mix them together, you get the diarrhea. But the whole thing is that at the end of the day in diarrhea, you are losing water. Now, when we go back to the normal functioning of the body, is that your body is made up of let me say blood. But the blood is about 45% water. So when you lose the water, you're literally losing a very important component of the body. So you disrupt the body's normal function because you don't have normal water. So the child or children have a very low immunity. They have very low coping mechanisms. The body hasn't adapted so much to the changing society. So what is going to happen is that it is very easy for the organs of the child to collapse because of mere dehydration, which will be difficult for an adult. But also we've seen that adults also, when they get dehydrated, they really face a lot of trouble with the dehydration. So children can easily die from the diarrhea. So it's very important that because a situation passed the previous day with another child, when another child gets sick and you're seeing that the situation is getting worse and worse, the child was able to drink, now they are not able to drink, you just know that danger signs are starting to show up. So it's important that you either do something about it or bring the child to hospital.
And just to emphasize the part of the dehydration, how quickly can dehydration kill a child if the mother or caretaker is not quick to respond?
Okay, an issue of time is difficult to put a finger to, but I don't want to scare parents or create a timeline. What I want to say is that it's important that you pay attention to how the child is progressing. Yeah. Just as I said, You have a child who has 2 episodes of watery stools and they are getting weak. It's important they come to hospital. A child who has 10 episodes, but then they are not getting weak. They are diarrheating but playing, diarrheating and playing. In that case, you're going to give the child a bit of time. I know naturally, because the child is playing, okay, they are diarrheating, but they are playing. So it's important to pay attention to how the symptoms are progressing and evolving.
So of the two, which one can affect a child's growth and nutrition or general well-being? Yeah.
Okay, now that is the other way around. Because you have diarrhea, you don't keep anything down your stomach, so you're not digesting. So you're going to end up in a state of, let me call it hunger, not malnutrition. 2 different things.
Yeah.
So for a child to get malnourished from diarrhea, must be a very, very rare instance. But I can say, if a child keeps getting diarrhea, it might mean that that child is malnourished. Can I repeat that again? Malnutrition is a progressive disease. It happens over time when a child lacks certain components of the nutrition. You lack proteins, you lack carbohydrates.
Yeah.
So because of that, malnutrition is going to affect the child's immunity or the ability of the body to hold or fight a few things here and there in the community or as they eat. So because of that, a malnourished child will tend to have more episodes of diarrhea than a normal child. But a child developing malnutrition from diarrhea is quite difficult. So I feel like those are 2 very different things here, yes.
Thanks for clarifying.
Welcome.
Looking at home management or remedies, I believe that's a point where some of our viewers are excited to hear. What can I do if I'm watching and I don't have the money to take this child quickly to the hospital? What are some of the home remedies that can be first aid of sorts? Okay.
Diarrhea, dysentery can range from being simple to complex. The government currently has facilities in place, the government facilities, and then versus the private facilities. So in this case, I want to encourage the parents that there are first things that we can do, but we don't let things go out of hand before we start to act. For example, if you notice that a child has diarrhea, there are past stools, there are past watery stools, it's now 3 times, 4 times, you keep observing the child is getting weak. The first thing is to try and get them oral rehydration solution, what we call ORS or OROS. So sometimes you have the sachets, you can access them, mix 1 sachet in about 1 liter of clean water. Again, to emphasize clean water, because the problem started from the water not being clean, so it has to be clean. And in this case, it's important to know how to make the water clean. Simple things. Let's boil the water, but after we boil the water, let's keep the water right. Because you boil the water, but then after boiling the water, you leave it open. The contamination still comes through. So when you mix the sachets of ORS in the water, you can give the child to drink. So the idea is that usually when the children are just starting to be dehydrated, they are very eager to drink, which is one of the signs or the symptom of dehydration setting in. So give the child to drink as much as possible. But one thing I need to emphasize here is that as a child drinks, the chances that the child vomits are very high. So that's why I emphasize that the parent should give small sips multiple times. So you don't force. You can just get a small teaspoon, keep giving the child, but do not force. Give an interval. In the event that I am feeding the child, I'm giving the child ORS and then they vomit, it's important to give them a good time interval. We talk about 10 minutes. Give them 10 minutes to relax and then continue giving them. But also, don't forget, continue assessing how the child is picking up. Are they getting weak? Are they still able to drink? Or the child was able to drink at first and now they're not able to drink.
Does ORS cure diarrhea in itself?
Okay, again, that goes back to the cause of the diarrhea. Yes, I told you that diarrhea can come from non-infectious causes, like the food was just dirty. So we need to give the body time to go through this and it will end. But as we are giving the body time, the body keeps losing water. So ORS replaces both the water and the salt. To just add on, not all of us might be able to access ORS. So it's very possible to make your own ORS.
Yes, I'll come into that.
ORS is very simple to make. What you need is 1, a clean set of utensils. Again, I'll keep emphasizing clean, 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 because that's where the whole problem started at. So you get 1 liter of clean water, and then to that 1 liter you add 8 spoons of sugar.
Yes.
And we are talking about tablespoons of sugar, and then you add half a spoon of salt.
Okay.
So 8 tablespoons of sugar, half a spoon of salt will make up an oral rehydration solution for the child. And then you keep giving them to take.
How many liters?
So the child can take as much as they can.
Oh no, to dissolve the that mix.
The 8 and half a spoon, that's 1 liter.
1 liter.
Yes.
Yeah. Those measurements are very important because, that thing tastes very weird and funny. So I can imagine somebody overdoing it or getting the measurements wrong.
Yeah,
that would be terrible for the child.
Mm.
So what else can the parents use in case they can't have the ORS?
In case they can't have the ORS, they can't have the sugar, so they can't do the ORS.
Yes.
The other thing to do is you can encourage the child to drink what is available.
Okay, so let's pick up from there when we come back from this break. But you're watching NTV Medical Matters and we're discussing diarrhea and dysentery. Make sure you stay here. We come back from this short break to continue this discussion. Welcome back from the break and thanks so much for staying here on NTV Medical Matters. I am Viola Sasira and today we are discussing diarrhea and dysentery. Also keep in mind we are supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I just want to remind you that you can be a part of the conversation on our social media at NTV Uganda, but also we shall be picking up your phone calls to ask questions about your little ones who have experienced these diseases. So our doctor is here, but I will just give him a chance to refresh our memory about his name and then we can continue our discussion.
Dr. Crispino Sowunda from UMC Victoria Hospital.
Absolutely. So we're speaking about ORS before we broke off, and we were giving a chance to parents who may not be able to afford it, buy it, or they could make their own at home. But away from that, what else is available as a solution for first aid for a child with this disease? Okay,
so what we re-emphasize is that in case you don't have ORS and then you can't make the ORS as we discussed before, most likely you might have to give the child what is available. Do you have porridge? Is the child still able to drink? Are they able to drink water? Are they able to take some juice, light juice like maybe passion fruits? Are they able to tolerate them down as they take them? Generally that. And of course, if you fail on getting anything for the child as yourself, you please bring the child to hospital. Yeah.
Okay. Should the child continue feeding even if they continue with the diarrhea? A parent may want to stop feeding them because after all they can't keep anything down. Okay.
So the 2 instances, disease affects appetite. So I have children who keep on with their appetite even when they have diarrhea. So I do not say they should stop feeding. But one thing we should be careful is that are we not feeding the child the same food that actually caused the diarrhea?
And that brings me to the question of what type of food should we avoid when it comes to a child that has suffered diarrhea and dysentery?
Okay, now for children who have suffered diarrhea and dysentery, I don't think there are particular foods to avoid. Children are very, how should I say? Children are very, very calm and they are very welcoming to all the foods that are available usually. So we can't start avoiding particular foods. But one thing that maybe we can tell parents is that it's important that we avoid processed juices when children have diarrhea. Because sometimes when you come to hospital, we'll realize that the child had more than just diarrhea, as we shall see ahead.
Oh yeah, speaking about that one, by the way, let me just pull you back to a different direction. Does diarrhea have types? I should have asked that at the beginning. Does it have types? But also, what are some of the other diseases that can actually come through that same, behavior that one may mistake for diarrhea?
Okay, now I'm not going to type diarrhea. But we'll say sometimes you have something that happens abruptly, which we call acute diarrhea. But then we have children who have chronic diarrhea. The child diarrheates almost all the time and every other day. Yeah. So when the child diarrheates almost all the time, all the other day, we need to pattern the foods they are eating when they actually get the diarrhea. One thing that is common is that we have things like lactose intolerance. You take the milk, you can't tolerate the milk, so you end up getting diarrhea. That's one thing that commonly causes diarrhea. The other thing is that some children actually intolerant to a lot of glucose, which we call sucrose intolerance. You can't give a child a Minute Maid, an Honor, they take it and then diarrhea. It means they are not just coping up well with the sugars. Things that are not common here but can actually cause diarrhea continuously in children and cause other symptoms that we are not going to outline here are things like wheat. There are children who can't eat particular foods that have, we call it gluten. It's very common with the whites, but it doesn't exclude all of us as the blacks. So if you keep giving a child bread, you give them chapati, and then they diarrhea, most likely sometimes they have intolerance to some of these foods. Then to just generalize this, sometimes we all have a particular food we can't tolerate. I don't do meat, someone doesn't do greens. So every time you give a particular food, they end up in diarrhea. So it's important to just pattern those foods, and probably for the start, you can consult with a doctor, with your medical personnel, but also you can start by trying to exclude that particular food.
Do you think mindset sometimes affects us, where we have a bit of a belief at the back of our minds that we shall adjust? This is a child. Most likely they are going to adjust to this, whatever they are resisting. Say, for example, milk.
So milk, I know it doesn't come from a point of really adjustment. I think it comes from a point of options. The child is 6 months, and all you have and think about is milk. So what we have seen parents do is that someone switches from this particular type of milk product and then goes to another, or they stop. Okay, they can't breastfeed, so they are giving cow and get. Then the other time they want to give Lactomil. So you say, okay, the child is not tolerating this, let me try another thing. If you try 3 different types of let me say milk, or what we call milk, and then the child still keeps diarrheating, don't insist. We have very many other options. We have porridges. You can actually consult in with a nutritionist on how the child can move forward. If consulting in with a nutritionist is a problem, we can just switch to different porridges that are available in our supermarkets and our local settings.
Okay, so I've heard a thing about boiled rice when a child is experiencing diarrhea. What does it do exactly?
What have you heard
boiled
about
rice? That it's a remedy. That it's a remedy, that it helps. Is that so?
In my own kind of practice, I've not had an issue of rice and then diarrhea. But I don't want to put the community practices down to 0.
Also, there is one where you just eat posho without sauce or bread, anything funny like that, or maybe cassava, just to make sure your body hardens. Does that cure the problem?
I think that doesn't cure the problem. If it cured the problem, probably you just had a mild form of the diarrhea, and then when you do the thing, it goes away. But people have done a lot of things. We don't want to entirely say no. So if it works out, well and good. I don't have a problem with posho. I don't have a problem with cassava.
What about the herbs?
So coming back to the herbs, that's a very important point. So all the meds that we have right now, the drugs, are literally from herbs. A few of them are really from a lot of very advanced technology. For example, things like insulin and what. It's a bit complex. But these herbs are not well dosed.
I see.
Children, even the adults sometimes, you have your liver that helps you break down most of these toxic substances as you take them in. But the issue is that the more you subject your liver to these undosed, unresearched, untested substances, the liver is going to get tired, in quotes. And we'll most likely see most of these people in hospital after some time. When they have liver failure, their liver is not functioning, their eyes turn yellow, the whole skin becomes itchy. So it's very important to either use your herbs carefully, but I would, as a doctor, encourage that people avoid herbs. For the children, it even becomes more worse, because as a young child, 5 years, 12 years, the liver is just developing. It's not fully developed. So when you subject that kind of young liver, quotes, to a herb, it's just going to just break down, and we can end up with liver failure in very young children.
So looking at all this stuff, I'm also imagining children that are growing up in very volatile households or toxic households. Can anxiety or stress trigger diarrhea in a child?
Okay, that's deep. I think it's not directly related to anxiety from the child, but it could come from the fact that because the home is violent, not a lot of attention is paid to things like hygiene and the sanitation around the child. And so this, in the long run, or in one way or the other, can be a predisposing factor to the things that can cause the child diarrhea.
What about when the child is scared? Have you ever had to do an exam and you felt your whole body was just distorting itself in multiple ways? Can that cause diarrhea for a short span so that you may think a child just got a challenge and now they're fine? That's how I was looking at it, you know. But for parents watching, and we had something at the back of our minds about some children get sick and they get better within a short time.
Yeah.
So when do you pinpoint that it's the right time to take your child to the hospital as a parent?
Okay, as a parent, you've tried your RS, or you've tried giving a child what to drink, and then they cannot drink. They are just getting more weak. They are not able to take up. They are not able to take up any more fluid. Yeah. The child continuously vomits. The child's episodes of passing loose stools is just getting worse. It's important to bring that child to hospital. The other thing is that if you're able to identify sunken eyes, well and good. If you see that the child's skin is becoming pale, bring the child to hospital. But certain obvious things, when the child collapses suddenly.
We had a caller there who I think decided to leave unceremoniously. But speaking about going to hospital, finally you've arrived. I was thinking about an option to food, being that the child keeps passing stool. And asked a question earlier about whether the parents should keep feeding them. So when we get to the hospital, is there an alternative where the child can be fed through a cannula or something along those lines? Okay,
so the hospital again is not entirely about the cannula and giving ABC,
and tubes and
yes, and
alternatives.
Tubes, yes. The hospital does the evaluation. So at hospital, we see the child, talk about the child with a parent, and then we classify the child's state. We want to understand the child dehydrated, and if they are dehydrated, how much dehydrated are they? So in that, we shall be able to intervene. Sometimes we actually admit children and just give them ORS, encourage them to drink, and then monitor them. The advantage with the hospital is that here we are monitoring with knowledge, with expertise, so the child will not convert, or in case they are converting into a worse state, we are able to combat that. The other thing is that we decide to put the child on particular fluids, for example.
Okay, you pause there. We have a call. We have a caller coming through finally. At NTV Medical Matters. When you're calling in, please step away from your TV set, because that is what is interrupting most of the calls. So if you need to be heard by our good doctor here, step away from your TV set so that we can have your clear call. But the phone lines are open and you're free to ask your questions. So let's continue with the hospital thing.
Okay, so the other thing we do at hospital is, of course, give a child fluids, because I say this is a water problem. So we give you things like normal saline, which is fluid, to just make sure that the body is reperfused. You get more water into the body so the child can wake up, and then we monitor. Then also the other thing in hospital is that we try to determine what was the cause of the diarrhea and then deal with it. If it's an infection, we deal with the infection.
And speaking about diarrhea and the causes, the background of why it's showing up, does a child that was not immunized stand maybe a bigger chance to become ill with diarrhea or dysentery?
Thank you so much. The World Health Organization for a very long time, when the child is 6 weeks after birth and then 14 weeks after birth, we receive an immunization. So the immunization that we receive are against the viruses that commonly cause diarrhea. So I told you that diarrhea is broad, viral, bacterial. So what is very common?
I believe we have a caller. NTV Medical Matters, we can hear you. What's your name and your question?
My name is Pastor Mundo.
Yes, please.
Calling from Ginger.
What's your question?
Yeah, it's just an appreciation from Dr. Oundo.
Yes, please.
Thank you for well done. When the week is better, I'm just enjoying.
Okay, thank you for that. Thanks for your compliments. Just like that.
Thank you so much, Dad. That's my dad.
Oh, that's your dad?
Yeah.
Amazing. Did you look at that? Okay, so
yeah.
Wow, let's continue with immunization.
Yeah. So immunization. So we do the rotavirus vaccination at week 6 and week 14. So those viruses are very common within our society. So immunizing protects not just the person who has been immunized, but even the people around them. that the next time you get an infection with this particular virus, it wouldn't affect you as much as it would affect you if you weren't immunized. So the immunization is very, very protective. So it's very important that parents take the immunization, but also to emphasize that for parents, sometimes you feel you have missed the immunization.
So we have another caller before we continue immunization. NTV Medical Matters, your question and your name.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. What's your question?
My name is Jimmy James. I'm calling from Toronto.
Yes, please.
What I would like to ask the doctor is about diarrhea in adults.
Okay.
You'll find a situation where like someone is having serious diarrhea and even the body heat has increased. And leaving aside the issues of ORA, when we go to the health facility, paramedics always tell us that when you have a medication, for example, metro, that you may have it, maybe for example, as much as you swallow 4 at once or 5, depending on the situation. If it is a serious diarrhea, you swallow 4. So I want to confirm about that. Is it having also overdose, like you swallow only 2, or it can be depending on the situation?
Thank you, James, for your question. If we have another caller on the line, this is the right time to come through so that we pick up your questions and we shall address them at once. So you're watching NTV Medical Matters. You will catch us later on YouTube to follow up with the episode and go back and revise to make sure you take care of your child. But if you have any questions, also if you want to be a part of the conversation, go to NTV Uganda social media to make sure you never miss out on our conversations on medical matters. And so let's wrap up immunization and then we can answer the gentleman.
Yeah, to just conclude the issue of immunization, if a child has missed immunization, it's not a gone chance. The child can still do a catch-up immunization, so it's important that the children get immunized against some of these viruses.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the gentleman, he had
yeah. So I had the question. So in adults, diarrhea can mean a lot of things. We can look at a lot of diagnoses that I won't split here, but we look at how the diarrhea has come. Did you eat something wrong? Did you have abdominal pain? Any other associated symptoms or signs? And through that, we'll make a diagnosis. So one of the things that people commonly give for diarrhea in hospitals is metro. So right now, we'll do, if I make a diagnosis of acute gastroenteritis, that is infectious, of course, I can start with a very, very high dose of a drug. For example, I can give you 10 metro tablets, which is an equivalent of 2 grams of metro. You take it once, and that's enough. So it's okay. So I feel like the community should trust the health workers. Well, some of the things come from a very researched point of view. Yes, I'm going to binge give you metro tablets, 10 of them, you take them, but that's how you get better. Then sometimes we need to be sure. We shall want to find out, are you not diureting because you have issues with ulcers, which we call dyspepsia. Sometimes in adults, if an adult is over diureting, one of the first signs of HIV, yes, the first signs of HIV is frequent diarrhea.
We have a caller. Let's first pick that one up. Medical Matters, what's your name and your question?
Ida in Mukono.
Yes, please. What's your question?
Thanks for the show. I'm asking, I have a baby, but is diureting in a newborn of 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I don't know what would be the cause of that diarrhea.
Yes.
Yes, I would like the doctor to try to elaborate for him about that. It's just 2 weeks, but it's diureting.
Okay, thank you, Ida, for your question.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry about the baby, Ida. A baby 2 weeks with diarrhea, that is something that you need to take seriously. Most likely that diarrhea is viral. Because of the age, the baby is too little, the immunity is too weak. Most likely that diarrhea is viral. And if the child had immunization, it could be because of the immunization that the child has diarrhea. But these are things that can be managed. It's not like the immunization is bad. The immunization is protective, but sometimes this is how it works. So in this case, what I'm worried about is the child still feeding. Is the child getting weak? I would advise that Ida goes to the nearby hospital, and sees a doctor about that child. That diarrhea problem will be handled.
Okay.
While at hospital, they are able to do a stool analysis. and see if for sure the issue is viral or bacterial, and so the child will get appropriate treatment. But I would advise that she doesn't keep the child at home.
Yeah, I can imagine 2 weeks is very fragile. Yeah. Any last thoughts on diarrhea and dysentery before I let you go? Yeah,
so as emphasizing the issue of adults when they have when they have diarrhea. If an adult is having diarrhea over and over again, we suspect that probably there could be something off. So it's important you have your screen done. Do an HIV test. Just be sure that nothing is happening. The other thing is that diarrhea in adults that lead you to a point of getting dehydrated. Sometimes you suspect cholera in that case, yes. So when adults in a community and then more than one person in a household, another household, start having frequent diarrhea and then it's not getting better, it's important to consult with your nearby health facilities for guidance on how to move forward with that. Okay. Lastly, about diarrhea and dysentery, I would like to talk about the other things that can present with blood in stool that are not necessarily a dysentery, most especially in children. Sometimes children have issues with their digestive systems that might need evaluation by maybe surgeons, or if I am to put it that way, that might be causing blood in their stools. So when you say child with I know most of you now know how to do medications. You see a child and then they run and buy Antinol, then they buy some Piclox, some Metro. But if a child has blood in stools, it's important that they be evaluated by medical personnel to just be sure that it's not any other things other than the dysentery.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much for that and for coming here on the show to share your insights about diarrhea and dysentery. We appreciate it, and we hope to speak with you again very soon on the same. Okay. Hoping that our viewers were able to learn a thing or two from our doctor. We shall let him now go, but I hope that you understand diarrhea and dysentery are not a life sentence. These are things that can be mitigated, can be actually prevented, but also cured when it has gone that far. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I am Viola Kusasira. It's NTV Medical Matters, and we are supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We wish you an amazing week ahead.